Yes, ladies and gentlemen, it's Monday, and that means it's time for the Monday Night Raw Wrestling Inc. Raw After Show. You are being treated to Triple J, Justin LaBar, Jack Farmer, and Corduroy, Jimmy Korderas. Fellas, Jimmy, how are you? How have you been?
I'm good, hanging out here up here north of the border, north of the 49th, I guess it is. I keep forgetting which number it is, but yeah, we're doing good. Still got some nice weather so far as we're heading closely into fall. And, usually up here in Canada, we have two seasons, winter and construction. So,
yeah, I got bit by the nice weather this weekend. I got a little sunburn, but I'm okay. It's going to turn to a nice, beautiful tan very soon. Justin, though, how are you doing?
I'm good. Exciting start of NFL football here in the States, and my Washington Commanders, new era. We are 1-0, so that's exciting. My fantasy team just lost by 1.5 points, so that's disappointing. But all in all, I'm doing fine. If that's what I have to complain about, that is first world problems, right?
Well, my team, the Seahawks, I had to turn away from right as they got down to the last few seconds and they were up by 1. I'm guessing here, but I think they pulled out. But I'm kind of torn on if I'm excited about them pulling it out because I don't think they're going to be good this year. Part of me wants them to just tank, like take the losses, get a good pick.
That's a responsible fan of you.
Yeah, exactly.
You root for the jersey. You root for the overall well-being of the franchise. You don't get caught up in fanboy delirium.
Yeah, we're not going anywhere. Why are we doing this? This is going to be what costs us that great. Like some quarterback is going to show out in college football this year and be the next Patrick Mahomes, and we're going to be stuck having to draft someone else. I don't know who else, but
it could be worse. Your team could miss an extra point to tie the game and then lose.
That's very true too.
Yeah.
You guys don't you've never seen American football, Jimmy. You're in Canada.
No, we can. Oh, come on. First of all, we're just right across the water from Buffalo, so we get Bills games galore. But I'm of all teams a Tennessee Titans fan because I used to be a Houston Oilers fan from back in the day. Dan Pastorini, Billy White Shoes Johnson, Earl the Pearl Campbell, who, as Richard Pryor used to say in his act, he would run and guys would be hanging off him and they'd be yelling in his ear, "Please, Richard, please, Earl, go down. My kids are watching on TV," as he's dragging him across the field.
Yeah, I like the Titans as well. I really messed up because my fantasy team has Russell Wilson on it. So day one, I was already a torn fan. Do I want my fantasy team to do well or do I want my real team to do well? Well, like I said, I wanted my real team to tank. Do the think long term, why don't you?
See, I can't fan like as a Washington fan, I despise Dallas. So I have a rule. I've played fantasy sports. There's one fantasy football league I've been in for 22 years now.
Wow.
And same, mostly almost the same 12 of us. Been maybe 3 or 4 deviations. I have never once in the 22 years drafted or picked up a Dallas Cowboys player. I don't care. I cannot do it. I will not do it.
I can't wait for the next spar with LaBar because you're going to have some heat with one David LaGreca. But anyways.
I've drafted Russell Wilson every year since he came into the league, including this one. So wow. I even reach for him when I know that people are going to go for him. I'm not very good at fantasy football, by the way. So we got a lot of stuff to get into today. We got a big show to get into, but I want to talk first about some pretty big successes coming from the WWE. Triple H, he went to Twitter to talk about just how good of a show Clash the Castle was. He said on Twitter, it was a massive success for WWE across all lines of business in the WWE universe in the UK. The next question is, where should we go next? The tweet featured an image showcasing the feats that Clash the Castle was able to pull off. For starters, Gunther and Sheamus was the most viewed Intercontinental title match in premium live event history, and also claims that Clash the Castle was the largest European gate ever, amongst other things, and says that it was the biggest non-WrestleMania event for them, which is a very big win. It actually leads into the next thing, the next news item. I'm just going to put them together because it's all about the successes of WWE. SmackDown's numbers have just been incredible. WrestleNomics released a viewership information for this past Friday, and the September 9th episode of SmackDown was watched by 2 1,367,000 viewers, which was 14% higher than last week. And the key demo, 744,000 people, just monster numbers, Justin. And I got some thoughts on why they're doing so well, but I would like to hear yours.
Well, I want to start with the Clash at the Castle success, and you listed some of the accolades. One, I don't think you did mention that I'm kind of looking at mainly is for merchandise, the best-selling non-WrestleMania event. That's huge. Now, look, we see now in this day and age that WWE puts on a few other shows that to scale look like WrestleMania, right? We see a Saudi show a couple times a year. Obviously, we got this great show in front of the UK fans. But the Saudi shows, and I'm sure that maybe this is a cultural thing, whatever. We don't ever hear about booming merchandise numbers of them buying. So I think that's kind of key. But for this show from Cardiff is that you're there in front of 60,000 fans, and to be able to have 60,000 fans with 60,000, that's a great number. But that's not. There's been several WrestleManias that have trumped that number, right? And so to have the best-selling non-WrestleMania, merchandise event, I think that's a huge thing. Merchandise is big. It's big for the talent who get a cut of it. And I always think that merchandise is a really good way to, there's key demos and segments, whatever. But I always think that if you want to measure how are talent doing, unfortunately, it's not stuff that's readily public. But if you can get WWE to release anything about who's moving the needle at the merch stand, that tells you who's over. That tells you what's getting over. Did some character all of a sudden start some catchphrase and they made a shirt with it? Is that selling? Like I think merch is a time withstanding measurement. We can say that TV gets out of date with our viewing habits and whatever. A lot of things evolve. Merchandise is still as relevant today in 2022 as it is in 1996 when the Austin 316 shirt exploded, when the NWO shirt exploded. So I love merch numbers, and the fact that Touts is the best-selling non-WrestleMania event, big number, big deal to me. And then SmackDown, SmackDown along with Raw, just things are consistent. Things are just moving. The word is slowly spreading. You don't need to just check this show out on YouTube. It's worth checking out while it's happening, because you know what? You might miss out and might get spoiled on social media that somebody showed up. Somebody did something cool. Somebody said something cool. Things mattered. It's a lot of momentum right now in Stamford.
I love your points about the merch, because I always say saying you like someone on Twitter is great. And of course, if you like someone, I always think praising people is always a good thing to do, but the merch matters. If you really like someone, like if you're a big fan of Liv Morgan and you want to see her keep that title, go buy a Liv Morgan shirt. That's the best thing you can do. But Jimmy, something Justin said there, everything's cooking. It's a great, I know it was big and historic that they were in the UK for a Clash at the Castle, but I think the real selling point for us not in the UK was that it looked like it was going to be a great show, regardless of where they were. But what do you attribute to the success to? Do you think it's same thing, or what are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's all of the above. I mean, like they're just seem to be hitting all the right notes right now. Like Justin said, with the merchandise, that's your best gauge of who's connecting with the audience and people are gravitating towards. But right now, I think with Triple H taking over, and people at first were curious to see where this direction was going to go with him at the helm. Would there still be that influence from Vince? And there's all those people out there, the conspiracy theorists. Oh, Vince is still in his ear, or he's running things from the shadows. But what's going on right now is, and I always thought that, and I think Triple H has a good pulse of blending old school with new school. And I believe I've said that here before. And now we're getting to see that he can cater not only to those hardcore internet fans, he's catering to a wide variety of fans. There are people who are kind of coming back and going, you know what? I'm kind of liking what I'm seeing now. I'm kind of gravitating towards this. Stories are making sense. Matches are given time to develop and tell stories, all of the above. So if you're into matches that tend to have a lot of spots in it, you'll get those occasionally, but you don't get in a whole entire hour of it. You know what I mean? You get a lot of variety. I think he's, like I said, he's ticking all the boxes, the right boxes right now. He's on a bit of a streak with what he's presenting on television. And I think, at least for now, people are digging it.
Yeah.
I am.
Yeah. I think between us, I think Raw's been the best weekly wrestling show going for the past few weeks. I think all their shows have been great. They've been They've been crushing it.
Have you been added to the payroll as well? No, I'm kidding.
God, I hope so. I'm like, I'll tell you right now, if they cut me a check, no.
You think only WWE money could support that hair, that farmers?
Yeah, it takes a lot of well, now that they signed a deal with Fox, they're able to afford the hair budget. I always think that's funny. People say like, "Oh, you're like getting a check." Like, could you imagine Vince McMahon being like, "Hey, Jack," or Triple H, "Jack, we need you to talk good about the show." So, like, I don't know. It's crazy to me. It's funny.
Well, and have we not learned anything in this past summer of investigation? Money on the DL will eventually come to light.
Mm-hmm.
So,
right.
Whether it's for sex or for podcasting, it's going to end up on the books and the quarter report.
Right.
Or the corduroy report.
The corduroy report.
There you go.
Let's get into this week's episode. But as always, before we do, I'd like to thank everybody for checking out the show. If you are watching on Apple Podcasts, leave us a 5-star review and say something nice. Why don't you? If you're listening on Spotify, I think you can leave a review there these days. If you're watching on YouTube, like, comment, share, subscribe. But if you're watching right now, thank you so much for joining us in the chat. We've got Bernie in the chat, Rocky in the chat, the Pro Wrestling Show in the chat, Blue Chew, Angelo, Peter, George. We've got Jason. We've got M. Rouse, Tuck Graff, Bit Milligan. Thank you guys all so much. Ricky and Dylan, thank you guys so much for being in the chat. And David there too, and Big John. Always appreciate you guys joining us in the chat. Always fun to see what your guys' thoughts are. I appreciate that. For a second there, we almost had the Beatles. I was reading off the names there, I think. But in any case, thanks everyone for joining in. Before also we get to the nitty gritty, we got a super chat from Mia Lee who says, Gable be low-key putting on some bangers. I can see Johnny in that Cody territory as a babyface. Fantasy booking Trish and Lita get a tag title run. # Team Theory. A lot of stuff there, fellas, and we'll get into that, I'm sure. But a lot of praise. Like I said, I feel like Raw's just been clicking for me. I've been enjoying it. Let's start off the show, though. We get Seth Rollins coming out, getting tons of love from the crowd, but he says he's done with Riddle and wants to be the world champion again. Riddle shows up and chases Rollins off, but then the Judgment Day comes out and they offer Riddle a spot in Judgment Day. Riddle says no thank you, and they get a fight. During the Balor and Riddle match, Mysterio chases off Damian Priest, but it's Rollins coming out to distract Riddle that gives Finn Balor the win. Post-match, Rollins stomps Riddle and tells him to move on. They are over. Justin, Seth Rollins is in an interesting spot for me where clearly he's a bad guy. Clearly we're not supposed to like him, but everybody, I think, loves Seth Rollins. You can hear the crowd. They dig it. What do you think happens with a character like him that we're supposed to hate, but people clearly universally love?
No, it's a great question. I actually think his promo before Riddle interrupted kind of maybe illustrates where they actually are with him, which is he's trying to be done with Riddle. We've seen Riddle and him carry a program for the entire summer, but he's talking about karma. He maybe wants to get in terms of getting a title picture. But it's almost like, how do you put him in a title picture if you don't know whether or not he's face or heel? You don't know how to present that. I think he is I think he is kind of in an in-between. I think he is probably maybe one of the great mysteries of the Triple H inherited era that we are now, I guess coming up on 2 months in, which is, he obviously he's a great worker. He's settled in finally with this new character, this hybrid Joker kind of madman kind of thing. But yeah, the crowd sings along with it. They're starting to kind of, I don't know. I think he's just a question mark. I think he's just kind of like, he's like this utility guy who, at any given moment, you could put him out there in a house show and let him be babyface. You could put him out on a house show and let him be heel. I will say one interesting thing, though, is that he's out there trying to get rid of Riddle. Then here comes Priest and Balor from Judgment Day. They're trying to take on Riddle and recruit him and then take him on. And then Rollins comes back out there. Rollins is wearing the same colors as Judgment Day. He was wearing some purple. I didn't know if that was like supposed to be an Easter egg of foreshadowing, but just a note that there was a if you're paying attention to those kind of things.
I love that because, and this is what's been great about the way WWE has been presented lately, is they do those little Easter eggs, and it does matter. I think 3 months ago, I'd be like, it probably doesn't mean anything, but nowadays, with the little Easter eggs you see in the backstage and stuff, there is thought put in that. So I like that. I like that call, Justin. And I knew Riddle wasn't going to join Judgment Day, but I would love to see the dark Riddle character. What that looks like. It would make me giggle. But Jimmy, I want to talk to you about something that I loved about this episode. And it happened a bit. Is we had a lot of intersecting stories and characters throughout this episode, particularly Riddle and Judgment Day. I think back in the old day, again, 3 months ago, we always got the, they have matches, just those two people would interact every single week until the show, where this is now two totally unique storylines just crossing paths, and we're seeing where things go. I'm loving this. What are your thoughts when you do that? Does it muddy it up, or do you like that it keeps things fresh?
If you do too much too soon, then it can muddy it up. As long as you take your time, again, intersecting the stories together and give it time to develop, it can work tremendously. Like we saw what happened now. We'll get into what happened at the end of Raw. I don't want to give it away yet in case people haven't seen it. I'm pretty sure people know what went on anyways, but at the same time, this is where now with the Riddle character, you can kind of intersect him and side him with those that are going against Judgment Day because of the proceedings. So intersecting these storylines is beneficial, especially when you don't rush it and you don't try to just, cram everything together. Or as I like to say, put 20 pounds of potatoes in a 10-pound bag.
These intersecting storylines, Justin, and I think what's great about it is it gets me thinking about rivalries and things in the future. So when those two people do clash, it doesn't feel just like two people thrown together for the sake of a rivalry. And that gets me to one of my favorite little things about this episode, Rollins saying he wants a shot at the world title. And I was thinking about it. You have KO saying that Reigns owes him. You now have Rollins saying he wants a shot at the title. Even Karrion Kross has kind of wanted to pick fights with Reigns. I don't know who his next opponent is, but because people are talking about it, now it feels like when these matchups happen, again, it doesn't feel like just next in line. It feels like, oh, there's something here. Are you digging the idea of like a big field of people who think they should be the champion?
Well, absolutely, especially when there is just one world champion. It seems irrational that you have one world champion that only people on Friday or only people on Monday can talk about wanting to be it. No, it's like if you're in the company, everybody wants to main event WrestleMania. Everybody wants to be world champion. I will say though, just maybe a small correction, Jack, or maybe I missed it. At least with Rollins, he said he wanted to get back into having gold. He did not actually. I don't remember, at least in the original promo, him saying world champion, because actually part of me was saying this is where US and IC comes into good. He's just saying gold. Let's once again elevate those mid-card titles and make them as important as they need to be. So, but even so, but your point still stands.
I projected then. I wanted to see it.
but your point still is fair for Cross, for KO, for other people who are in the Roman Reigns periph. So. It's all good. It makes every title mean something. That's what it needs to happen. Is that every title is worth a pursuit.
Right. And so continuing on, because I love that, and there's more title talk about Rollins we'll get to in a second. We get the Dominic promo, and he talks about his perspective and why he doesn't want to live under his dad's shadow. We also see more kind of development of Rhea Ripley possibly pulling those strings. Justin, I want to go back to you here. People have been looking to Dominic Mysterio to make this turn. Did this do it for you? Was this the promo you wanted to see from Dominic?
It was a step in the right direction. I'm not going to say it's the best promo I've ever heard, but it certainly wasn't the worst. Great call on them to do it as a pre-tape. He's still young. He's still, especially he's brand new at being a heel on the mic. So don't make him go out there in front of a live crowd that could potentially, just heckle him hard if he has one misstep. Could chant him to death. So do light it the way you want. Pre-tape it. Do as many takes as you need. And then the Rhea factor. This is a weird. It's weird, but it's working. There's a Jimmy. I'm trying to articulate it. There's this weird. Rhea's basically as tall, if not taller than Dom.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, Rhea has her own menacing look.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, she is still a female. So then there's this dynamic of like, no, she's not like his. There's not a romantic thing going on here, but there is this. You don't often see the woman wrestler controlling or directing the male wrestler. There is a dynamic, but it's kind of weird. But I'm kind of buying into it of like, ooh, Dominic's turned dark. He's turned his back on his own father, and there's this gothic kind of crazy, dangerous Rhea Ripley that's whispering in his ear. It's a little exotic. It's a little seductive. You just use your own. It's almost like you use your own imagination of what she's saying to him.
Right. That's exactly it. It's got people thinking, okay, how is she manipulating him? What is she saying to him that we're not hearing? You know, that sort of thing. And that's part of the allure of this. That's part of what people are gravitating to, hopefully thinking, you know, one day we're going to maybe catch them backstage and the camera will catch her, you know, how she's manipulating it, like in a non-sexual way, let's put it that way, obviously for the camera, but they are alluding to the fact that, you know, maybe there is something more going on. And again, having people guessing is some of the best ways to attract them in, to keep them watching so they could find out what is going on.
It's that horror movie philosophy of sometimes the best thing you can do is not show people what actually happened, but maybe they only hear it, or maybe they only see the seconds after, because your imagination can be a lot scarier than what they could ever show you in reality.
Exactly.
Yes, I think that hit the nail on the head. I love the dynamic between these two. And if you had told me a year ago that I was going to love the chemistry between Rhea Ripley and Dominic Mysterio, I would have said, "What are you talking about? No way!" But here we are. It's great. I think it's a fascinating thing to see unfold too.
Right. And the big thing here, again, coming out of this is Dom saying he's not a boy, he's a man, because, you know, sometimes even myself watching it, you know, because I'm one of those people who remember him as a 5-year-old backstage and stuff like that, and getting to see him when he was a young kid, you know, so hearing him say that just kind of helped elevate his new evil persona.
We get a tag team championship match today. Raquel Rodriguez and Aaliyah versus Io Sky and Dakota Kai. They acknowledge that this is happening because the illegal person got pinned in their last match. It's a fun one. And we also get new champions when Dakota Kai pins Aaliyah. Jimmy, I want to ask you this. Was it supposed to be the wrong person pinned, do you think, in their original match, or was that a mistake and they just tried to fix it here?
It could be either way. I mean, but it works. The bottom line is it doesn't matter now because it worked. It got, you know, the end result. If this was supposed to be the end result, if it was supposed to be Kai and Sky going over in the original finals of the tag team tournament, we got to that destination anyway. So, but in this case, it tells a different story. You know what I mean? It puts the baby faces over to some extent, but at the same time you say, yeah, there was a 3 count, but the wrong person got pinned. So now there is a reason to have this rematch, and, you know, the heels win in heel fashion, which is kind of cool.
Yep. Justin, any takeaways on this? Do you want to see Raquel and Aaliyah stay a team? Do you feel like this was kind of a reaction to, everyone sort of thinking that Damage Control should have been the champions? To me, I guess I like the result. I like where we're at, but it feels a little weird how one team won and then just a few weeks later, a new team is the champions.
Yeah. I mean, look, Raquel and Aaliyah won. I was there in Pittsburgh, here in Pittsburgh a few weeks ago. So, I mean, it isn't a weird kind of timeline of like, were they trying to just give the babyfaces a little bit of credibility for being able to say they're champions for a few weeks? I don't know. I like Raquel and Aaliyah. I like the entrance they do together. I like the kind of I like the contrast of the size. So if we're going to keep focus and we're going to keep depth on a women's tag division, yeah, keep them around, and at least they can tout that they are former tag champions. But this certainly, seeing Kai and Sky hold these titles. Look, when this faction got formed, SummerSlam basically, and certainly was one of the first knee-jerk reactions of the Triple H era, right? Of him putting his touch on who he wants to work with. It wasn't for nothing, so it's inevitable that they were going to have these tag titles. So it wasn't for nothing. So that's all I kept saying to myself, is that we had to get here eventually. Funny kind of how we did get here for all the things we just said, but I don't think anybody's harmed by it,
Yeah. We got a few super chats I want to get to here. One is from Mick Cloud, going back to Rhea Ripley. And I'm going to ask you this, Jimmy. Do you think that, alluding to Rhea Ripley, does she have a Scary Sherry vibe?
I think it's more of a combination of maybe a little bit of Scary Sherry, but at the same time, a little bit of China too.
Yeah.
I get more of that China vibe, but still, I see where the Scary Sherry part comes in. Not as loud and and screamy as Scary Sherry, but I could see where that comes in. But I get more of a China vibe from her.
Yeah, 'cause she's got the muscle. She can back up. She can power through people if she needs.
Yeah, she looks like she's in charge. And even when she was when China was with DX, it almost looked like they listen to her.
Right.
Yeah.
We got another super chat here. Ralph the Ace with a big one. Thank you to Ralph the Ace. Had the casual friends over and enjoyed the show. We do have a nostalgia super chat for you. Justin and Jack, did you guys have a first show that got you into wrestling? For us, it was Mania 5 on VHS. We old. And Jimmy, your favorite underrated show you worked? Let's just go across. Justin, what is your do you have a show that got you into wrestling that you remember specifically?
Not one show. It was just my earliest memories of watching WWF was 3 to 4 years old. Yeah, that's like some of my earliest memories in life. My mother worked for the police. She worked shift work. She was a very young mom. So I had a lot of time in front of the TV. So I saw wrestling. I knew I was into it. I could not pinpoint the very first show on TV. The very first VHS, like the first shows I started rewatching, and then I learned how to use a VCR at whatever age I was, in 1992. So Rumble 92. So Rumble 92, famous one in the Knickerbocker Arena in Albany, Flair, and coming in, and then Mania 8 after that, then SummerSlam in Wembley. 1992, that whole year I have on VHS. That was my rewatch, play with my action figures, kill time type of thing. I'm sure I watched shows earlier. I know I watched some Saturday Night's Main Events and some things prior to that my mom, again, let me see. And I was very, very young. But 92 is really when my memories start kicking in from a live standpoint, where I was following along live.
Yeah, for me, it was kind of similar timing, I think. My cousin would come over and babysit me as a kid, and he'd always bring over wrestling tapes to put on, and I used to love it, but I didn't really know. I would just kind of watch whatever he brought over. I don't know what order it was or anything, but the tape I saw that I think really hooked me was that Royal Rumble that Ric Flair won.
92.
And 92. Oh yeah, so it was 90. I always mix up if it's 92 or 3, but I remember thinking I couldn't understand why Hulk Hogan was being such a sore loser, and it just for some reason that's what stuck with me. As I was like, you lost. Why are you so mad? And why are you being a jerk about it? But that kind of got me rolling with it. But then I always say it was Scott Hall coming through the crowd on Nitro that really I am going to watch every single episode of wrestling from now on.
And Jimmy's face says, man, I feel so old, because Jimmy had been in the company for a couple of years prior to everything we just said.
Oh man.
Yeah. So what's your favorite underrated show you worked?
My goodness, that's a tough one. It's a good question. It's a great question, actually. I'm trying to remember exactly what match I worked. We've done so many stuff overseas in Europe that are. Oh man, I mean, I'm trying to remember. WrestleMania 13 was one in Chicago. I believe that was in Chicago. Yeah. That was a great one that I enjoyed working.
Which is interesting, Jimmy. Not to cut your train of thought off, because that's a other than the Bret Austin match, that's a mania that largely gets kind of poo-pooed as it's in a hot period of time for the business, for WWE business, but it was a mania that kind of just
Yeah, but I thought it didn't deserve the credit it should have got. I thought it was a better WrestleMania than people expected. And then there were some, let me put it together, some live events / house shows that were amazing. We did one in El Paso, Texas, one time, main evented by Eddie Guerrero and JBL, which was fantastic. It was they did an angle at the house show where Eddie's mom came into the ring, and JBL grabbed her by the hand, and she quote unquote had a heart attack in the ring, and oh my goodness, the place just JBL needed a police escort out of there. Let's just put it that way. And it's a great question, but it's a tough one at the same time. But because trying to remember every pay-per-view that I've been a part of, every TV that I've been blessed to be a part of, and house show, just too many. Many.
Great question though. Thank you so much for the
great super chat.
Let's continue. I want to I'm just gonna put together 2 backstage segments because they kind of go together before our main event. Rey Mysterio trying to clear things over before the main event. First he talks to Dominic and he gets nothing but the cold shoulder. Then he tries to talk Edge out of fighting his son, but no luck. Edge is like, look, I'm a good guy now, and that means I'm going to beat the crap out of my friend's child. I don't know if there's anything to take away from this before we get to the main event, but those 2 things happened. Kind of gave us Dominic's like, hey, I'm not listening to my dad's side of thing, and also that Edge is a little unreasoning as well, Jimmy.
Yeah, but at the same time, Edge has got to do the tough thing where he says, listen, he says he's a man now, then we got to treat him like a man, and he's got to take this ass whooping like a man, pretty much. So I like that part of it, and I get and I like the part of Rey being that concerned dad, regardless of how old, he's old enough to drink and drive. It doesn't matter. You're still a father, and you still don't want to see your son get hurt, and especially by your close personal friend.
And as routine as these backstage promos might be, okay, this is what we shoot and air before the main event, and maybe dare I even say trivial. These promos are important because you have, Dominic's been one of the rising stars during the pandemic. He really had his rise. He really had his regular TV time with his dad during the empty arena shows during COVID, and he's always just been, he was the little boy in the storylines 20 years ago, and then now he's kind of like, he's the son, he's the little protected one. You have to shed that image. You have to aggressively decide you're going to shed that image if you're going to get him established as a heel, and then oh, by the way, whenever his father retires, if Dominic wants to have any kind of staying power and remain, these things right now are important to like not have him just subconsciously viewed as like the baby, as the hanger on, as he's the reason Rey's around. All these things that are some of this is internet stuff, but you have to shed that. I always think that's something that this is a wild comparison, but I think it's relevant. I think that's something going back to the late 90s WCW days. They tried with David Flair, Ric Flair's oldest son, and it just never they never got him out of being just the crazy son of Rick. And looking hindsight now, was there ever a chance? You look like Ric Flair. Your last name's Flair. If you're not going to be the next best worker of the generation, what are you trying to do? And so I think that's kind of thing here with Dom is I don't know what Dom's long term is. I don't know if Dom eventually puts on a mask and he's the next Rey Mysterio, or if he continues to be Dom Mysterio, or if whatever. But I think these things are pivotal right now to, if this is going to work, you have to establish him as his own identity, as a standalone man. As Jimmy said, Edge said, if he wants to be a man, we're going to treat him like such. And that kind of stretches into reality right now, as if, okay, if you want to do this, we're going to book you as such. You're not just going to come out there to your father's entrance music and pop. You're going to come out to your own. You're going to hold your own in the main event, and you're going to take yours. And then, but by the way, you also need to make sure that you do what we need you to do, which is the heel that's going to be as piece of shit as possible.
Something I did like about this too, and I agree with everything you just said, Justin. these segments felt like they were supposed to be about Dom and Edge, but in a lot of ways too, this was really about Rey Mysterio kind of losing his son and his last attempt to try to keep his son and protect his son, even though he wasn't even in the match, which I think was really great character development for what he's doing and probably where this is all going as well, even though it felt like it was about Edge and Dom. I think it was actually doing a lot of good stuff for Rey as well throughout. Who I think what we talk about, good stuff that was done. These next couple segments, I think, were just incredible. First off, we're going to split them up into two. We got Johnny Gargano making his debut against Chad Gable, and I think this was the perfect match for Gargano to have in a debut in every way. It was a match with Gable, which makes Gargano easy to love because we all hate Chad Gable. Plus, the match was bonkers good, and it helped people who don't know who Johnny Gargano is see just how good he is in the ring and as a wrestler. And it helped play to the loose affiliation that Alpha Academy has with Theory and that kind of building rivalry they have. I think, Justin, that much like Cody Rhodes, I feel like they have just got a slam dunk with how they've brought in Johnny Gargano.
So far, so good. Cody has a little bit more advantage of having a little bit more cachet with the name, and of course, coming out of AEW and that. But Johnny, I will say, and I've rehashed it many times. I have a personal love for Johnny, dating back over a decade of working with him and his family. Johnny certainly is my note here. Johnny is the most white meat babyface they have right now. I say it as a compliment because in this day and age anymore, with the internet and with it's cooler to be bad, it's cooler to be anti-establishment. Johnny is the kind of guy who he is. Eat your vitamins, drink your milk. That is him that's him as his personality and his character. That's him as a man. He is not a partier with vices. He is not a guy that's taking shortcuts. I mean, he is the most wholesome guy next door you want to marry off to your daughter, so to speak. That can be a tall mountain to climb for a babyface in today's pro wrestling climate. So far, though, his hard work ethic, he's managed. He is getting to the crowd. I think you saw a crowd standing up and kind of applauding. Okay, this is why this guy is called Johnny Wrestling. He is going to perform in a style, in a way that not many others on the show are going to be able to match. So far, yeah, this was a great return in ring, for him. And a good opponent, and Chad Gable, who can match the athleticism, but also Chad Gable is just easy heat right now. Chad Gable is just so over as a heel; it's fun. So this was a great pairing, great booking decision by Triple H, who gets the credit, right? So yeah, I'm very interested to see how this. I want to see 6 months from now where Johnny's at and what the reaction is to him.
Yeah, Jimmy, I agree with Justin too, in the sense that I don't think he's as big of a, I don't think he's going to headline Mania the way I think Cody Rhodes probably will. But I just mean as far as the execution goes, introducing this character into the world, I can't imagine how they could have done it better. But what do you think? You've been around, you've seen a lot of people come and go. I feel like if you've never seen Johnny Gargano, you completely get the character and he can just take off. And now his success is in his hands, I feel like.
And like Justin said, he's such a good guy that comes across on television. And for once, people are gravitating towards a good person. And I hate to sound like a broken record, but yes, he came out unexpectedly, surprisingly here in Toronto, to the main roster, his main roster debut, so to speak, re-debut, as he signed back with the company, as people were expecting it to happen elsewhere, closer to his hometown, so to speak. And so they took their time with it. They let it fester. They let people again go, I can't wait to see this guy in the ring. And then like you said, pairing him up with someone like a Chad Gable, who is just you talk about people who don't get enough credit for what they do. You want to get somebody over and look good at the same time and get over without going over. Chad Gable is your guy. And he helped Johnny Gargano. Not that he needed the help, because Johnny Gargano is just that damn good. But you know what I'm saying? It was just a perfect pairing. It almost felt like it was a flawless matchup. And to Justin's point, I guess Triple H was the one who decided to put these two together for the debut, and couldn't have made a better choice.
Doing comparisons, Johnny, I know he kind of internalizes to be the best possible version of this generation of a Shawn Michaels. He loves to be the guy that just, you look at his face and it's like, oh my God, you just feel his pain. He's trying to fight through and fight up, and he does it. And then I've always said that Chad Gable reminds me of, like, in some respects, just some of the best heel Owen Hart. And it was really fun watching these two work, because there was little sequences that I was like, that kind of looked like a Shawn Owen thing back in like '96. So it's fun to watch.
I love the Owen Hart comparison. So many people go with the Kurt Angle comparison. I like the Owen Hart comparison. I think that's the better comparison. But that was I thought this was just a really well done. But then after, I was like catching my breath. I was like, that was a great segment, knocked out of the park. After that, we get Theory in the ring, and I still call him Theory because I don't like when WWE just changes the names of people. So Theory, he's
you're just Farmer. The graphic needs to be changed. You're just Farmer.
I like the old days when they got rid of the first names.
Mm-hmm.
No, but we get Theory. He's talking trash, and Kevin Owens comes out, and Kevin Owens, my oh my, he is just. You can set your clock to a just game-changing Kevin Owens promo each and every week. This guy, I don't know if he's just been like he's always been good, but I feel like the past few weeks has just been awesome. And this wasn't just awesome because like he was feeling it, but I mean, he made Johnny Gargano look like $1 million during this promo. He made the differences between him and Austin Theory seem like just this big issue that now suddenly this feels like a blood rivalry, even though they kind of didn't have too much of a history. Jimmy, they nailed this. I think Kevin Owens has just been a superstar.
He absolutely hasn't. Like you said, the last few weeks, he's been given the ball and he is running with it. He is hitting it on every, I talked earlier about ticking off all the boxes. Forget about ticking off all the boxes. He's just, he's hammering it out of the park. He's hammering it into the ocean. It's just everything he touches. If you give it to Kevin Owens is on a roll right now. And we always knew, those of us who know Kevin, I've known him for a long time, knew he had it in him. He just needed an outlet for it. And not to be restricted as much. Yes, you can guide him and as they say, give him bullet notes, but let Kevin Owens be Kevin Owens. And we saw the real Kevin Owens tonight. That is that passion, that fire, that intensity that people are trying to compare to someone like the other past Wednesday night where we saw another great promo. But this is the Kevin Owens you can get on a weekly basis. And it just seems like everything you give him now, he's going to knock it out of the park. And tonight was just another example of it.
Yeah, Justin, I'd love to hear your thoughts on Kevin Owens, but also I want to talk about Austin Theory and how it's so impressive how he's grown. I feel you can see the confidence change in him over the past few weeks and now him interacting with the crowd, but also I feel like this was one of the best, in my opinion, Theory moments in a very long time. The blood on his face, the angry, the serious version of Theory, who's been kind of a joke. But tonight, it felt like after his scuffle with Theory, he looked like a very serious, very dangerous kind of opponent now.
Yeah, I mean, Theory, he does have a confidence. Even last week, when he messed up his words and he immediately blamed it on the jaw pain from Tyson Fury punching him, and and again, maybe this speaks to the greater thing that we're hearing about in the company. He doesn't feel like he's walking on eggshells. Nobody does. Everybody kind of feels like they just go out. They can just take their best swing and just try. Theory feels like that, even though Theory was very much on TV, he was the Vince handpicked guy. Even now, if Vince is no longer involved, Theory still feels like somebody you need to pay attention to. You need to what have you. And then KO, Owens. Great promo. I really am intrigued by the babyface situation that is a brewing in WWE. Mm-hmm. That's been one of the weak spots of WWE as a whole in the last, we'll call it 5 years, maybe it's 10 years, I don't know. Is when John Cena goes back to Hollywood, You know, when Brock goes back to the farm, who are baby faces that can move merch, sell tickets, get people to come to the live event and Poughkeepsie. You know, and you look, you got white meat babyface Johnny Gargano, who's getting people behind him on a work ethic. You got a Riddle who he's just got this weird kind of, you know, he's got this Randy Orton rub to him, but Randy's gone, so you kind of believe in him because he's like Randy's extension, and then he's got this stoner happy vibe to him, but he's a tough guy. He's an MMA guy. You know, then you got Cody Rhodes, he's a Rhodes, and he's back from the competition, but he's injured. Then you got KO, who's like the closest thing to like that anti-hero Stone Cold, who got to work with Stone Cold in WrestleMania. You got Edge, who's the Hall of Famer, who's the babyface situation right now is fascinating. And then you got Braun Strowman, who's back all of a sudden, who normally guys of his size are not sympathetic characters, but we're all in favor of Braun and the brute strength. The babyface situation is fascinating in WWE. And so everybody, this whole thing was fascinating. Johnny wins. He gets cut off by Theory. Theory's cutting the BS promo. He gets cut off by KO. I just love the transition. It really kind of summarized the situation right now in WWE, which is fun. It's really fun.
Absolutely. And the what's nice too is the good guys, they're not getting. I used to feel like in a lot of ways WWE was the land of hopelessness up to a few months ago, where it felt like the good guys always just got embarrassed every time they tried to do good. Like they'd get beat up, or I always think of Roman Reigns when he got dog food dumped on his head and all this, like pie in the face or whatever. Where now it feels like the good guys are actually someone that you're not embarrassed to be a fan of.
One of the, for those of you on the audio only, I'm doing the Dr. Evil air quotes. One of the good guys is stalking a man and his family outside of their mansion, but he's a guy who's been. So that kind of just sums up, Jack, where we're at right now.
I've got my thoughts on that today too.
Yeah.
But we before we get there, we've got another championship match. Bianca Belair with the open challenge that Sonya Deville answers. They have a match, and Bianca Belair wins. Afterwards, Damage Control wants to jump Bianca, but Asuka and Alexa Bliss come out and save the day. Justin, I want to go back to you on this one. I loved that Sonya explained their history before they had the match instead of just being a random match. And it reminded me of KO also talking about how he became the Universal Champion. And something that WWE's been doing that I've noticed is that they're letting us know that history matters. What had happened before matters. And even though it could have been looked as a throwaway thing that Sonya mentioned it, to me, it was like, okay, she's not just open challenge. I'm closest to the entry ramp. There was actually like a reason she's out there.
All those reasons are good. All that logically is good. And I like Sonya Deville. I've liked her overall, her presentation, her look, everything. This match didn't hit it for me. I don't know if it was too long. I'm not sure where the fault was. I'll be honest, and if she sees this, I mean this with all respect. She looked blown up. We got to a point where it was time to go home, and she just looked blown up. Versus her thoroughbred athletic stud of an opponent in Bianca, who looked like she hadn't even broke a sweat, and then proceeded to do a post-match promo and interaction with Bayley. I don't know what happened here. I don't know if it was blown up. I don't know if it was not on the same page. I don't know if it was whatever. But Bianca retains. Again, I'm glad it was a match for a title, because we can all let's not take for granted, Jimmy, where we would have been 2 or 3 months ago, where it would have been, okay, Sonya's got to beat Bianca in order to get a title match against Bianca. So I'm glad at least it had stakes on it. But I'm watching this, and I'm rooting for both girls, both ladies. But this did not sit with me.
Yeah. I just to front it, I'm a big Sonya Deville fan, so I always want to support her. But you're right, it did feel something did feel off about this. And I never want to pretend like I know what the issue was, because it could have been a million things. But Jimmy, you've been in there. This one, yeah, it felt like something wasn't right in this one. But what are your thoughts on this?
Those nights happen to all performers. It doesn't matter who it is. Every once in a while, you get a night where things don't click, and it didn't feel like it clicked here. And to get a little nitpicking, a little bit off topic here, yes, I get that these two had a history in the past, which was explained, which I liked. But at the same time, here is a female superstar from SmackDown just showing up on Raw to answer an open challenge, and again, it almost makes that, the brand split, so to speak, for lack of a better term, feel like, okay, so why do we have one if you can just walk on to Raw, or a Raw superstar could just walk on to SmackDown? Yes, I get it. They gave us a reason why she wanted to face Bianca Belair, but at the same time, it just kind of that at first put me in the mood of, I don't know why. They could have figured something else out.
And the crowd reaction was pretty quiet for Sonya.
Yes,
maybe to that confusion too of why am I seeing? I don't know.
I even have a note here: crowd quiet for this match.
Crowd was quiet. Yeah, it was just crowd was quiet. I think it was longer than it needed to be.
Yes.
And then even so, like, you could say Gargano and Gable longer than you wanted to be, but they kept their energy up to fulfill the time that they were asked to get to fulfill. This did not. It just felt a little sloppy towards the end. Like,
and those two clicked too. It was working. What they were doing was working anyway.
Yeah. I think Sonya, to honestly, too, didn't feel like much of a threat. I don't think anyone went into this thing, and it didn't feel like this was going to be a tough fight or a long fight. But as far as the brand split goes, to help you ease your mind, Jimmy, there's no brand split. Just let it go. It's like when you watch those tag matches and everyone's in the ring for like a minute and a half. Just let it go. There's no what
an offensive thing to say to a man who was an exclusive SmackDown referee.
I know, with the blue shirt and all.
The dude crossed the picket line.
Yes,
that's going back to the days when wrestlers had two names. No, but I've kind of just come to accept people are going to jump across the lines.
I know, but still, at least you gave us a reason why this match was happening, because these two had a history. Give us a reason why she came over from SmackDown. Right. She was given a one-night hall pass, whatever the hell you want to call it. I don't know.
Did they have a name for that? They had that for a while, where it was like 5 times a year. It was like a 3-week thing that Vince and USA Network. It was like a wild card. Wild card. It was in the dark times. It was right around the same time that the 24/7 title was created. Yes. That was a very weird time.
Mm-hmm. No, not weird. Dark.
Yes. That period, not the same time as Underground, was it? Or was it?
No, it's all about the same time.
That was Underground. Yeah.
Yep.
Weird time. Weird day. Dark times. You're right. We got, speaking of Raw Underground, here's a segue. Omos, the former guard to the door of Raw Underground, is back, and he's beating people up. Jimmy, this is a dominant match for Omos, and I think just kind of reminding us that there's a giant still looming in WWE.
Exactly, and we still don't know exactly what that plan is for the giant, which is what is good about it. We don't know who his target is just yet. But we're seeing that he is a dominant figure, taking out two people. And I know people are going to say, well, he took out 2 enhancement talent. It doesn't matter who he took out. He took out 2 guys. And he looked strong. He looked dominant. And he was basically playing with them, for lack of a better term. So, again, it's the next step. It's the first name guy that he defeats in dominant fashion, which will make it interesting to see how the audience reacts to that.
Well, yeah, Justin, and also now if there is, like, let's say an open challenge and we're like, who's it going to be? When you hear Omos's music, it's not going to feel random. You're going to go, oh, yeah, he's been killing people lately.
Yeah, I mean, I can't add much more to what Jimmy said. I'll say this. I like the fact that they are, they're not abandoning Omos, but they are slow playing. I like that they are trying to fill in some of the gaps with the presentation. And what I mean is, his ring gear. He had questioned for a long time there. He was wearing like oversized winter coats, and he was wearing this, and he was wearing that. I like that they're getting to the ring gear where it's something that shows off his body, his tattoos look, but it also still vibes with his feel. I like that his music is evolving, and now it sounds like there's a rap in his native language. Maybe I like the presentation is starting to come together. It's starting to make sense. He's not just getting generic track 3. Cameraman has to get on his ankles to shoot sky high at his face. Like, we're starting to like make things feel on purpose with him. Don't know what his first real meaningful story is going to be. But look, he's a guy who he doesn't grow on trees. A guy his size does not grow on trees.
He is the tree.
Yeah, he's learned what he's learned up to this point, at least enough that's kept everybody saying, okay, let's keep trying with this guy. So you keep trying, but you're not going to rush him to the main event right now because that's not ready, Right. So yeah, it's a delicate, slow balance play, but I like the fact they're at least trying to tighten up his presentation. And that's something right now.
Right.
Jimmy, did you get the technical difficulties during the entrance?
Yes.
Do you think that's a bit, or was that real technical difficulties?
No, it was technical difficulties up here in Canada. We even lost audio for a few seconds.
Okay. I was wondering if it might be like the crashed cars and fires we're seeing in the background and stuff like that.
He's so tall, it screws with our...
It does. It gives me vertigo sometimes when they show that guy next to people. But I do want to give a quick shout out to one of his opponents. Invictus Cash is a guy who does a lot of wrestling out here in Southern California. Has been on AEW Dark a few times as well. He was the blonde one. Very talented fella. I'm going to be seeing him at Championship Wrestling tomorrow, actually, here in Irvine. So he's got a plane to catch. But as we continue on, we go from one monstrously strong person to another. Bobby Lashley interrupts a Rollins promo and they debate who the face of Raw is, and it turns into a match next week for the US title. This is why I assumed he had said world title earlier on, because he said here, I wasn't thinking about the US title, but I'll take it from you anyways. Again, Justin, something where they're doing where they connect things, and these little things I feel like matters, where he says, you MMA guys always want to fight about things, Justin, which ties back to Riddle, which again makes it feel like there's a connection, even though it doesn't really matter. But me as the viewer, like, oh wow, this is connected. This feels like it makes sense.
Yeah. If you're gonna ask people to sit through a 3-hour show, just try to make it make sense. Try to make point A connect to point C.
Yeah,
from hour 1 to hour 3. So this is just, I mean, again, it's this Raw overall. I know we're not in the point where we're done Raw and we're giving our overall grade, but this kind of ties into my point here. This Raw was not the best in the Triple H era. It was not the most exciting. But it kind of settles in the honeymoon era, right? Like, it's like this Raw in the Vince era would have been bananas. Yeah. Now, based upon what we've seen, it's kind of so. But what it is, it serves the principles, which is just make things matter, just little things, make them connect. If you got 3 hours to fill, I know it's a long time, but it's just these little things of attempt, of effort, and that's what this was. This was not the best, most exciting episode, but at least what you just said connects some dots and makes it seem like, okay, there's no segment waste here. Every segment, let's put forth something on TV that somehow can progress something else.
Right.
I did think at one point, Lashley was like, you're always wearing these crazy suits. I was like, Lashley, you wear fancy suits too. But yours are just different. Jimmy, I got to ask, if you have to choose Seth Rollins or Bobby Lashley, which one right now would you say is the face of Raw?
Well, you have a great argument for Monday Night Rollins right now, because to the point of where he said that wasn't the title I was thinking of, but you know what? That title could use someone like me to elevate it to the status it should be, because you have not elevated the status of the U.S. Championship or something along those lines to make it seem like he's the one that could elevate that title. And you know what? I'm all for someone like a Seth Rollins having that that United States Championship and making it mean something again on Monday night. Not that Bobby doesn't, but he, like you said, the crowd is into Seth Rollins right now. He has got people, whether they cheer for him or not, people want to see Seth Rollins, and he's a guy you can put that title on and make it relevant again. Not that Bobby is not making it relevant. It's just that people aren't gravitating to him like they would to Seth Rollins at this time.
I want to see him make "Let's fight about it" his new catchphrase. I thought that's a great line. He said that today. We get an interesting interview with the Miz in his home, or Manor Marmiz, as the sign said on the wall. And it doesn't go very well as far as interviews go. But after they leave, Dexter Loomis is in the house. Justin, I found myself, you alluded to this earlier, I found myself agreeing with Corey Graves. This is getting kind of creepy. Did they leave their kids in the house with Dexter Loomis? That's kind of a creepy. This is like, why are we cheering for the creepy stalker? I don't get it.
Yeah, they're banking on the fact that Miz is such an effective heel. He's been one of the best heels in the last 15 years. It's like you almost drop, especially if you're a husband or a father, you just drop application to your life, and you're just like, oh, the Miz is such a whiny POS. This is fun. I don't know where they're headed here. I'm intrigued. This has been one of the stories that WWE has put so much effort in the last month to this, to the Easter eggs, to the pay attention to the background of who's there. I like that. I am curious. What are we what are we trying to accomplish? Why Miz? Why is Dexter Loomis seeked out the Miz? Yeah, we saw the kids very prominent in the situation. Miz and Maurice leave. The guards will walk the interview crew out. Well, is there a maid or a nanny putting the kids to bed because there's the psycho in the house? So there's a lot of things that need to be flushed out here. Yeah, I don't know. I again, why the Miz?
I wouldn't have the kids. I would have thought that was maybe just like a directing thing. Maybe they forgot to account for the kids going with the parents. But then he drew the kids. That's what actually reminded me. I was like, no. Like that wasn't just a oops, we forgot to put the kids in the car to connect that. That was the kids were mentioned there. Jimmy and everyone in the chat, by the way, Jimmy, you too. Are you rooting for creepy stalker Dexter?
Not me personally. I mean, it would have been different if at the end of the segment we would have seen like last week where the car pulls away and he's in the back with you get a light on him and stuff like that. But like you said, in this instance, with him in the house, we already saw the kids, and you're thinking, did the director forget that the kids were in the house? But then he held up the picture, like you said, and it just felt too creepy, especially for someone who's, chasing a heel. Right. You know what I mean? Now it makes you think, who's the heel here? This guy's,
right. Why is he? It's not like the Miz did something where he really wronged Dexter Loomis. Like it's like why? Why is Dexter Loomis doing that? Why?
Yeah, and I always preach. Sorry to cut you off there, Jack.
Go for it.
Because I always preach about taking your time, but you can also take too much time. And this feels like we haven't even planted a seed. We haven't given a hint as to why. It's just creepy.
Yeah, we're getting pretty far into this one. I feel like we need our next story beat to happen. To Justin's point, we need to know why I think he's doing this, because we might get. I call it the mechanical spider theory of, if you remember when Rowan had the cage and like, what is it? What is it? We didn't know forever. And like, oh, it's a spider. And like, well, that was a waste of time. Like the longer they take, the bigger of a reveal I feel like this has to be. Otherwise, I'm going to go, oh, that was a big letdown.
Right.
And I feel like we're kind of getting to that place where, like, if they don't tell me something new about this soon, I don't think they'll be able to live up to it.
The only thing I'll say, and I agree with everything you're saying, Jack. The only thing I'll say in response is, again, it seems like in this new regime, storytelling, and it seems like these answers have been figured out or whatever. So I'd like to believe that they have the end result already planned out, and they're gonna unveil things so next week the three of us will go, oh, okay, that's what. Like, so I'd like to hope that, because it seems like they are taking more care to the details. But right now, as it sits, it is kind of hard to be Team Dexter. Of why the hell is he doing this?
Yeah.
the Miz is a whiny, arrogant, Hollywood, pretentious asshole. But what did he do to deserve this guy to infiltrate his house and his kids?
Right. Because when Rollins did it to Edge, we hated Rollins doing it.
Right.
Anyways,
Yeah.
Speaking of kids getting involved in dangerous situations, Dominic has a match with Edge. We get an aggressive Edge to start with a more Weasley Dominic, who gets a ton of help from Rhea. When Dominic gets tied up, Ray gets involved to stop Edge from hurting his son. That's when Judgment Day shows up and takes out both Ray and Edge, and they just destroy the leg of Edge. Jimmy, were you as bothered by the fact that they didn't throw this match out when Ray started aggressively getting in the way of Edge as I was? Like, isn't that a DQ? He's like literally getting physically involved with a competitor in the ring in the match.
Technically, yes, but at the same time, that's a little bit of a creative license, so to speak, here, because it's a father protecting his son, and he didn't really get physically involved. Yes, he jumped in the ring and stopped him from running, but there wasn't any physical contact. So you can kind of technically say that, but at the same time, no, I get what you're saying. It didn't bother me as much as you would think, because especially someone as a referee who kind of critiques a lot of stuff that I've been seeing over the last little while that really annoys me. Even tonight, a little bit, some of the outside, work on the outside of the ring wasn't being counted and stuff like that. Again, it kind of bothered me a little bit. That bothered me more than actually the Ray part. Yes, I get where you're coming from, but at the same time, in this story, it kind of makes sense not to throw it out. Ray causing the match. It almost, the heels jumping in and Judgment Day coming in and having the bell ring because of them makes more sense, kind of, sort of.
I'll be honest with you, it didn't really bother me. I was just hoping you would get all fired up and angry about it. So I tried to
you were baiting me.
I was trying to bait you a little bit.
No, but it actually fits with the story that's being told here, as opposed to happening every week where something like that happens. This was a unique situation, so to speak, and a unique story being told with a father and son. So that's why it didn't bother me as much.
Justin, did Dominic do a good job, you think, as the bad guy in his first go round?
I wouldn't call it a failure, but again, it was kind of in the middle of the line. I like the call of making a DQ so Dominic doesn't lose. Dominic's the one standing tall, bashing the chair on the knee. All those things I like. Again, I want to see more. I want to see how this develops. I do like, too. I've always harped on this about WWE. I always hated the fact that if you're in a faction in WWE, everybody has the same focus, right? If you're in a faction, everybody has the same opponent. I like the fact that Rhea and Dom are dealing with Ray and Edge, and you have Finn and Priest who are antagonizing Riddle. I like the fact that you can be in a faction, have multiple storylines. That is a creatively refreshing policy. So I'm going to focus on that. Dom didn't crap the bed. He didn't, he wasn't a superstar. It kind of was what it was. I want to see how this, quite frankly, I think there's one more show. I think there's maybe a Saudi show and then there's Survivor Series. So I just kind of want to see, are we leading towards Judgment Day at a Survivor Series match? I kind of want to see where is the plan for this here to go.
Dylan in the chat says that every single one of those chair shots missed. Chair shots Dom missed.
No, it didn't, Dylan. No, it didn't. He placed them where he's supposed to make it look good, but not hurt the damn guy.
Exactamundo.
Yeah, I was gonna say I think Edge probably appreciates not full blown shots in the very least, but
you're not supposed to hit flesh.
Right.
Use the canvas.
I'm sure it still hurt pretty good though too.
You feel it. You feel it.
But also that stomp to the knee by Finn Balor at the end. For a second I thought he really broke his leg. I was like, the way it looked visually, just really quick, really
good.
well done. Do you think, Jimmy, do you think Edge is going to be out for a little bit? Is this them kind of taking him off TV for a little bit, you think?
Maybe so. I mean, like you said, it could be setting up something for Survivor Series down the road. And again, it would make sense for Edge to sell this for at least a couple of weeks, because it was that devastating with the chair shots, and then that the coup de grace off the top onto the side of the knee, which, like you said, it looked terrible. And even on commentary, oh my God, they broke his leg. And it looked really good. And if he doesn't take at least a couple of weeks off, then
what was the point?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, for a second, I thought they really broke it for a second. I cringed, and then clearly they didn't. So I was like, oh, okay. But just the shot looked gross. But that does it. That's the show. I think, and Justin, you alluded to it. I don't know if this is one we're going to talk about in 10 years, but I think it progressed everything.
This is an example of we have settled into a new standard. This was a good show, especially when you compare it to a show 3 months ago. This is a good show for a lot of minute things of pace, storytelling, getting talent exposed. But now that we are starting to move our scale and our standard to the Triple H way of booking, and I'm just going to call it that because that's just the easiest way to categorize it. It was not his best. It was what it was. But also keep in mind, we are, just removed from a Clash of the Castle Premium Live event. We are many, many weeks away from the next checkpoint of our Premium Live event. I think it's a Saudi show. I think, and then Survivor Series.
I can't. Yeah.
So you just have to take that all into consideration. That's all this was. But again, for a 3-hour show, which is a damn tall task, 3 hours, it still was a great effort to try to keep this going, to try to get people over, to make guys and girls matter. It just wasn't the most exciting. It was what it was, but this was far less painful to talk about than, again, some of the ones we've talked about in the last couple of years.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I had to dig deep for some of those in the past. But yeah, Jimmy, I think that, much like we've said, I don't know if this one wasn't the most exciting, but I feel like there'll be other episodes in the future that are more exciting because of the groundwork today set.
No, exactly. And you can't have a show every week that's now for those listening again, I'm doing the air quotes now.
Right.
Pay-per-view quality shows every week on television. Yes, you have to progress storylines, and sometimes when you're progressing storylines, you're taking a little bit of that flash and substance away in order to tell these stories, and that's just part of weekly television, episodic television, which is basically what pro wrestling is. It's weekly episodic television. I know Vince used to get lambasted for saying that, but he wasn't lying, So sometimes, like you said, especially with the last couple of weeks, the way they've been, we're coming off of that great premium live event from Clash at the Castle and that sort of stuff, and NXT starting to get back to kind of like their roots, but still have the colorfulness. They're not black and gold again. I think the expectations are higher than they should be. Like I said, tonight was a good show. It was a solid show. It just you've been getting good ones.
And we saw Johnny. We saw Braun. We can't have a return every week.
Right.
You got to let each return breathe.
Right. We've seen how that works out when you do too many returns or debuts all at once. And then we got a super chat from King Rail saying we need a light heavy title.
No, we don't.
No, we don't. Too many titles. Yeah. Then you're just accentuating the fact that, oh my goodness, cruiserweight champion.
I hate weight class titles in pro wrestling.
Right.
Me too. I've loved stuff that's happened in those divisions. I don't like limiting title. I don't like it when only certain people are allowed to go for a title.
Well, you're in a genre that the weights are worked. Everything
right.
We're not stepping on a real scale here.
Right.
Yeah, there were some people I remember when Buddy Murphy was the champion. I was like, no way that guy's under 205. That guy's jacked to the gills. No way he's under 205. There's a few of them. I was like, I don't think so.
No.
But that does it. That does it for the show. Thank you everyone for being in the chat. Dylan, Ethan Cruz, Ricky, Bernie, Jason James, John Everett, Dream Realm Studios, Jamie Mendoza, Lil Duat, King Rail, and of course everyone else. Baby Ice. Thank you guys so much for being in the chat. Always appreciate it. Again, leave a comment, leave a 5-star review with a nice little note about Triple J in there. But before we head out, Justin LaBar, where can the world find you online?
At Justin LaBar.
And Jimmy Korderas.
At Jimmy Korderas, doing my thing like I always do, the Canadian Heat Magnet.
And you can find me at Real Jack Farmer across all social media. That does it for us. Make sure to follow at Wrestling Inc. and make sure to tune in for the After NXT show here on Wrestling Inc. tomorrow, the After Dynamite show on Wednesday, and the After SmackDown and Rampage show on Friday. That does it for us, and we will see you guys